Welcome to the Workings of Kamma lecture series. This is based on the book by the same name. The program structure is as follows. First, we start off with meditation. This is followed by the lecture. We have a questions and answers session scheduled after the lecture. After the questions and answers session, we conclude the program. For the questions and answers session, please post your questions in the Facebook and YouTube chat or comment section in the live video. This program continues on every Wednesday at the same time, that is, 2 p.m. Coordinated Universal Time or Greenwich Mean Time. This translates to 7:30 p.m. Sri Lanka and India time. Please note and convert this time to your local time and join us every week for this enlightening Dharma Talks series by a very erudite monk. Today's lecturer has a bachelor's degree in Buddhist philosophy and religious studies from the Buddhist and Pali University of Sri Lanka. Also, the Venerable has studied under guidance of notable teachers for 5 years. Now we invite the Most Venerable Teacher to start the meditation session, followed by the Dharma talk and questions and answers session. The meditation session will start now. This will be followed by the lecture.
Okay, hello everybody. So let's sit in a comfortable meditation posture. For meditation, it's of utmost importance that we keep our back erect and we do not move at all. During this practice, we will also keep our eyes open. We will keep our eyes a little bit open, seeing the floor right in front of us, or whatever is there in front of us. But the point is that our eyes are half open or less than half open. We can tilt the head, send it a little back, and we can make the first determination in our minds voicelessly. From now on, for 10 minutes, I will meditate on muscles and radiate loving kindness without any movement. From now on, for 10 minutes, I will meditate on muscles and radiate loving kindness without any movement. From now on, for 10 minutes, I will meditate on muscles and radiate loving kindness without any movement. And with that determination, we can gently, lovingly notice, accept there's a flat piece of sinew at the top of the head. We allow it to be heavy and changing. Heaviness here represents the element of earth, one of the 4 main elements. Changing is the characteristic of impermanence, one of the 3 main characteristics of the world. And we continue accepting heaviness and change in muscles and sinews throughout the body, to the forehead, eyes, nose, lips, chin, cheeks, ears, back of the head, we allow all of the muscles and sinews throughout the head to be heavy and changing. We continue to the neck, shoulders, arms, elbows, forearms, wrists, palms, fingers, tips of fingers, chest, abdomen, back, we allow all of the muscles and sinews throughout the upper part of the body to be heavy and changing. We continue to the buttocks, thighs, knees, calves, heels, soles, toes, tips of toes, we allow all of the muscles and sinews throughout the body to be heavy and as we allow the body to be the way it is, we achieve freedom from worry about the body. Let's enjoy this freedom. Let's watch this peace. When we have established ourselves in peace, we can share it with other living beings. In our minds, voicelessly, we can wish, we can allow. May all beings, including me, be in peace. May all beings, including me, be in peace. Now, because the time for this sitting is finished, let's make the last determination in our minds voicelessly. From now on, I will always be calm. From now on, I will always be calm. From now on, I will always be calm. And with that determination, we can slowly, mindfully change the way of our sitting. When we have changed the way of our sitting, we can take one more minute to enjoy the peace we gained in meditation. Very well.
Lecture will start now. A questions and answers session will be held after the lecture. Post your questions in the Facebook and YouTube chat or comments section.
So we'll be looking at the book from 𝗷𝗶𝗸𝗲. Let me see, where did we finish last time? Okay, here it is. So we didn't see each other for about 2 weeks, 3 weeks. then to recapitulate here very easily, the 𝗀𝗂 until here has been basically explaining that a person who's not enlightened is a foolish, unenlightened person. Sometimes the 𝗀𝗂 suggests that a person who's a foolish, unenlightened person is simply the person who does not know the Four Noble Truths, or the person who does not accept the law of Kamma, or the person who believes that there is no rebirth, and so on and on and on. So the idea of foolish, unenlightened person, as you can see, is confusing. So does it mean that everybody who's not enlightened is a foolish, unenlightened person? No, that's a wrong understanding. We don't really know whether this is what the 𝗀𝗂 wants to imply here, but truth is that according to the commentary, here I'm not sure, but I think to the Satipatthana Sutta, the Pali commentaries, the ancient commentaries written by the great masters of the old, suggest that there are two kinds of unenlightened people, and that's the foolish unenlightened person, 𝗷𝗶𝗸𝗲, and the good unenlightened person, 𝗀𝗂𝗯𝗀𝗃. So it is possible to be not enlightened at all and still be a good person. We do not get that explanation in this book, however, so be very careful about that. It is possible to be a good person and still be totally unenlightened. Okay, so now we'll be looking here at some details of wrong attitude, and we will be discussing today some of them. So we have here an example provided by the 𝗀𝗂 himself. A woman or a man offers a lit candle to the Buddha image with the wish to become a bhikkhu in the next life. This is a wish that's very common in Myanmar, because in Myanmar, based on the Buddhist teachings, it is believed that being a woman is not as fortunate as being... I'm not sharing the... I think I'm sharing. I see, okay. I'm sharing it, but not for you. Let me see if I can make it visible. Seems like it doesn't get visible. So we'll have to try some things to resolve that. Oh, suddenly it started to work. I can see it in one preview, but not in the other preview. So I've definitely moved to something, but it's not successful yet. Oh, now it's visible. All right, so I'm having some surprises here. If you do not see the preview, please kindly tell me. And if you see it, please kindly tell me too. All right, so we have here the idea of wishing for birth as a man. So I will need to unpack this a little because it's very clear to the Burmese, but it's not clear to others. Why would you want to be born as a man? Aren't you a perfect and the most happiest human being and living being in the world if you're a woman? Or aren't you equal to men if you're a woman? Okay, well, if the women can show that they do not have any menstruation, if the women can show that they do not have any pain during giving birth, if the women can show that they have no pain when they are pregnant, then I am ready to accept that women are equal to men. Until then, I will not accept it, because I do not have menstruation. Throughout the 36 years of my life, I didn't have menstruation a single time. And would you believe that none of the men in this world, or so I understand it, has ever had menstruation a single time in their life? Even if they have lived 120 years, they never had menstruation a single time in their life. That's a big thing. That's a big thing. Because menstruation is a big thing. It's a lot of pain. It's a headache. It's a stomach ache. It's a backache. It's blood dripping from your body. It's the necessity to provide various things for inside your body so that the blood doesn't go here and there. And it doesn't take just 5 minutes or 10 minutes. It may take several days, 3 days, 5 days. And it becomes even a bigger problem if it doesn't happen. Suppose you have, if you're a lady, you have your menstruation every month, and now suddenly you do not have it. And that's another problem, additional problem, you see? Yeah, as soon as women have no menstruation in their life, I'm ready to accept that women are equal to men. So, I'm looking forward to that. Until then, women are not equal to men. Sorry. The Buddha explains that there are 5 kinds of suffering that are partaken only by women. Number 1, menstruation. Number 2, the pain of being pregnant. Number 3, the pain of giving birth. Number 4, in some cultures, not everywhere, the cultural duty to serve the husband. And number 5, the cultural duty, again in some cultures, to abandon her family so that she can live with her husband. Because culturally, and in Vietnam, it works pretty often. I'm now in Vietnam, by the way, but it's also in the other Asian countries pretty common. And that is when a man gets married with a woman, the woman leaves the home of her parents and she comes into the home of her husband's parents, where the husband is also. In the modern times, it becomes more and more common that the husband and wife live in a separate home than the parents of the husband, but it still is very culturally appropriate and expected that the woman serves the parents of her husband. On the other hand, the husband does not serve the parents of his wife, and the husband is not expected to serve his wife. He may, there's no problem with that, but he's not expected to do that by the Asian cultures. And husband, the man doesn't have menstruation, the man doesn't have pain of being pregnant, and the man doesn't have pain of giving birth. So these are 5 specific, 5 kinds of suffering specifically of women. And so I can fairly say women are not equal to men. So when women want equality, they will have to provide more detail. What do they mean by equality? Do they mean that they do not want to have menstruation, or that they never want to have they never want to give birth to children. Okay, please let me know. I'd love to know that. Because of these 5 specific kinds of suffering for women, Burmese women would like to be born as men in their next life. This may make sense after what I've just said, but it's not really reflecting anything in the Pali scriptures. That's because our Pali scriptures never suggest that women should try to be born as men. Not at all. And the Pali scriptures also do not suggest that it is more difficult to become enlightened for a woman than for a man. Not at all. So in Buddhism, the equality between the man and woman is specifically related to the potential to become enlightened. But let's start from the beginnings. The potential to be virtuous, to be generous, to meditate on concentration, and to observe and understand the impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and not self of the physical body. So in this respect, in the respect of the potential to be generous, virtuous, and a meditating person, in this respect, the men and women are 100% exactly the same. And we can read, there's a story, not sure where exactly it is, but I've heard at least a story where, I think I read it too, a wife goes to the monastery, and the man first goes to the monastery, he becomes a non-returner, he achieves the 3rd level of 4 levels of enlightenment. He goes back home and he says, "Oh, dear wife, no more sensual pleasures for me." And he explains that he is a non-returner, that he achieved the 3rd level of enlightenment. So the lady goes to that monastery and she becomes an arahant. She achieves the 4th level of enlightenment. So in some cases, the ladies are actually faster and more efficient on their way towards Nibbana. So again, in this respect, it seems by and by, the ladies and men are exactly equally equipped, equally endowed with the potential to become enlightened. And therefore, the idea that ladies must try to be born as men in their next life is not acceptable. And so 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗲 is fighting with it here a little. You may like to know that it's a very traditional, very common idea that the ladies want to be born as men. Let me totally guess, so it can be totally wrong, that at least about like 50% of women in Myanmar would love to be born as a man, either in the future or at least in this life, they would be happier being a man. At least 50%. That's my feeling. I lived in Myanmar for 9 years. So of course, I'm basing this assumption on my experience and on what I've heard, but could be different. Could be 99%. Could be 1%. I don't know. But quite a lot of ladies that I have seen express their wish that they want to be born as a man. What the Buddha seems to, however, suggest, if it comes to rebirth, is that not only ladies, but gentlemen as well, try to be born as deities, as gods, G-O-D, gods. So we are supposed to try to be gods. Moreover, the Buddha has given a duty to monks. The monk's duty towards lay people is to show lay people the path to heaven. Sagga samagang ajikante. In the Singala Sutta of Digha Nikaya, the Buddha provides 6 duties to the monks towards lay people. And the last of these 6 duties is that monks show the way to lay people so that they become deities, so that they go to heaven. And in our scriptures, it is implied that it's good when monks are born in heaven by the visit of the king of gods, Sakka, also known as Indra. So the king of gods, Sakka, or Indra or Vishnu, so not that the Buddha would be Vishnu, actually the king of gods, Sakka, who served the Buddha. So Vishnu serves the Buddha, not that Buddha is Vishnu. So the king of gods, Sakka, visits the Buddha and he praises the Buddha for making the heaven of 33, because there are many heavens, the heaven of 33 for being populated by many gods. So many monks passed away and they were born in heaven. So the king of gods, Sakka, comes to the Buddha and praises him for that alone. And our scriptures do not say, oh, you see, the king of gods, Sakka, is here coming, saying that there are many gods in heavens, and that's such a problem. These monks, they were so evil, they did not become enlightened, and instead they were born in heaven. No, we don't have such text. We don't have such text that criticizes somebody being born in heaven. There are many meditation teachers who do that, who criticize, who will criticize you if you want to be born in heaven or if you are born in heaven. Not the Pali texts, not at all. It is, of course, better to be born in, to be not born, to be entirely liberated from all birth, old age, illness, and death. It is, of course, better to wish to be enlightened, to achieve the ultimate enlightenment, and not to wish birth in heaven. But if it happens that you're born in heaven, and if it happens that you do good deeds that will help you to be born in heaven, then that's actually very good. The Buddha advertised heaven to monks again and again and again. The Buddha advertised heaven to lay people again and again and again and again. The Buddha explained how the heavens are so amazing, how long life you can have there, how much pleasure you can experience there. So the Buddha advertised. The Buddha was a great advertiser. He did not advertise clothes or beer or whatever like that. The Buddha advertised heaven. On the other hand, I wonder if the amount of the Buddha's advertisement for Nibbana actually comes up to the amount of the Buddha's advertisement of heaven. I think actually that's my feeling, and it could be wrong, but my feeling is that the Buddha's advertising of heaven actually was more than the advertisement of Nibbana. Well, that makes sense because heaven is much easier. So the Buddha would advertise heaven to everybody and Nibbana to those specially equipped with previous merit from their past lives, so that they are born, so that they achieve liberation from all birth. The Buddha would not praise to you Nibbana if he knows there is no way for you to achieve Nibbana. And the Buddha, up to my understanding, would not praise to you heaven if you have the potential to achieve Nibbana, except special cases, such as when praising of heaven would make you try hard so that you get born in heaven, and on the way you somehow happen to achieve enlightenment. So in that case, the Buddha would actually praise heaven to you, even though you are eligible to become enlightened. That's because you would not like to work hard for enlightenment. You would not be able to understand it. The path to heaven is thus a kind of junction where you get, and then you can decide which way to continue. Do you want to continue in birth, old age, illness, and death? Or do you want to continue to achieve Nibbana? So there is no problem wishing to be born in heaven, but it's always better to wish for Nibbana, because if you wish for Nibbana, you will probably be born in heaven anyway. But that birth in heaven will be a support for you to achieve Nibbana fast. If you are born in heaven, so today we'll be probably talking just about this, but it's a very important point to understand the Sayadaw's attitude in here. So if you're born in heaven, you can become enlightened in 4 ways. If you're born as a human, you can become enlightened in 1 way only. So different. You can become, in this time, when we do not have the Buddha anymore, there's only 1 way how you can become enlightened as a human. And that is engage in generosity, virtue, and meditation. There's no other way. Sorry. No way of becoming enlightened just by hearing the Buddha's teachings. No more. At least that's the conclusion of the great Burmese masters. Instead, if you're born in heaven, but you did practice Dhamma and you did learn Dhamma a lot as a human, so when you are then born as a deity in heaven, there are 4 ways how you can become enlightened. First is you remember what you have learned as a human. You remember the Buddha's teachings. And through that memory alone, you achieve enlightenment. Okay, so because I'm not really showing you anything in the text, I'm canceling the sharing. So you can achieve enlightenment just simply by thinking of the Buddha's teachings that you learned in your previous life as a human, when you're a god. Now, suppose that this will not work for you when you're a god, so you have another option, and that is that you meet with somebody who studied Dhamma together with you in your past life. And that person will talk with you about Dhamma. You will then listen to what they say. You will remember what you have learned yourself and also become enlightened. Third is if there is a deity who teaches Dhamma in the heavens, then you approach that deity, you listen to that Dhamma, you remember also your learning from the previous life, or it simply makes sense because you have that habit of thinking about Dhamma from a previous life, and you become enlightened. The fourth way is when a monk in the human realm gets psychic powers so well that he can actually visit the heavens. Such monk visits the heavens through his psychic powers without dying. He visits the heavens through his psychic powers to teach Dhamma to the deities and then come back to the human world without dying at all with his physical body. And so he teaches the Dhamma to the deities in the heaven, and those deities who practiced and studied Dhamma in their previous life become enlightened. So these are the 4 ways how it is possible to become enlightened as a deity. So being born in heaven is actually a good idea, especially if you want to become enlightened and fast. Being born as a human next life is not a good idea, because you will not become enlightened fast. If you're born as a human, you will be stuck for 9 months in the mother's belly. And then you're born, and you will be stuck learning how to walk, how to eat, how to speak. Even then, when you're 7 years old, your mom, your dad will probably not like to allow you to become a monk, to become enlightened. Instead, they will send you to school. And at school, you may stay maybe until you're 20 years old. And then when you're 18 or 20 years old, well, then if you are lucky, you may get your permission from your parents, because without permission, sorry, you will need your permission to become a monk or a nun. So you have to wait 21 years to actually start working on your enlightenment. Whereas if you're a deity, you start from the very moment that you appear in that world. There's nothing to stop you. You have full power. Because deities are not really born from womb. Deities are so-called spontaneously born beings. Spontaneously born beings mean that it means that they are born immediately with full-fledged adult body and complete abilities. Not only that they know how to speak, eat, and walk, and so on, but they also have psychic powers. They can remember their past lives. They can read the thoughts of other person or other living being, and they can disappear and appear and fly here and there, and so on and on and on. Of course, their abilities will be limited to the abilities of the gods of that particular heaven. We have quite a few heavens, and in each heaven, the lifespan, the pleasure, the abilities are a little different. Okay, so being born as a deity is definitely much better asset for your enlightenment progress than if you are a human. But still, as a human, we all should try to achieve full enlightenment already in this life. Because how do you know that you will be born as a god? What if, as the last thought in your life, you remember some lie or something wrong you have done? Well, that would actually push you to hell, like it or not. You would probably stay in the hell for a short time if you engaged in plenty of merit. But still, who wants to go to hell to suffer, even for 1 minute? Not me. And so we do not risk it, and we try to achieve enlightenment in this very life. So do not think like, okay, I don't need to achieve enlightenment. I will just do some good deeds and wish to be a god, and then as a god, I'll become enlightened. No, it doesn't work like that. It's not sure. So this woman or a man, so some lay people, to conclude this my introduction, and we will hopefully continue with the text next time. The lay people who want to offer something to the Buddha with the wish to be humans in the next life are unnecessarily losing their opportunity to be born as deities and achieve enlightenment very fast. You can wish to be born as a human when you are fully eligible to be born as a god. That's totally fine. And you probably will be born as a human. My point is that it's not a good idea, because as a human, you're stuck for the first 21 years, and then you can just start to achieve enlightenment. But still, you have this problem with your brain. There's a problem with brain. What is it? It's heavy. The brain is heavy. It's limited. The deities, the gods, I'm not sure if they have a brain. I would love to learn more about anatomy of the god's body. It would be very interesting. Do they have hormones? Do they have nerves? And so on and on. I really would like to know that. Anyway, the gods are not obstructed by their physical body in their thinking, whereas we are. If we are tired, it doesn't work well. If we are exhausted by some work, it doesn't work well either. If we are ill, it doesn't work well either. You see, these are problems. But gods, deities, do not have these problems. So gods are much more in advantage than us humans for becoming enlightened. And I think that's why gods do not have to meditate. You know that gods do not meditate? Gods don't have to meditate. In meditation, you are basically working hard to overcome the bodily problem. You, of course, work with your mind, but if you did not have this cumbersome body, then you would probably realize the Buddha's teachings much faster and much easier. Because again, your intelligence is at its 100% potential all times. And moreover, you do not have illnesses or worries or troubles and so on and so on. That's why it's really, really lucky if you can be a god and study Dhamma. For us humans, we are still lucky, but it takes us more time and more effort and going through a lot of troubles in order that we become enlightened. So wishing to become a human is not a good idea. All right, so this was the introduction for what we are going to read about next week. And I would like to ask you, anyone and everyone, to ask me if you have any question so that I can address that. If you have any question, please write it in the comments right below this video that you're watching. We, or me and the organizer, can immediately see your comment so we can address it as soon as possible.
Questions and answers session will start now. Post your questions in the Facebook and YouTube chat or comments section.
Okay, I see we have here plenty of comments. So let me see what we have. In past Buddha's dispensations, I have heard that Mara could not challenge the Buddha, unlike Gautama the Buddha. Mara could not challenge the Buddha, unlike Gautama the Buddha. I don't understand that question. Do you mean like in past Buddha's dispensations, Mara could not challenge the Buddha? I see. So the previous Buddhas were not challenged by the Mara to the extent that our Buddha Gautama was challenged by Mara. That's interesting. But there's absolutely no reason why this would be so. Because Mara believes that he is the Lord of sensual pleasures, and until you have sensual pleasures, somehow you are under his power. And so Mara doesn't like when monks want to liberate themselves from sensual pleasures and thus from the power of Mara. So it doesn't make any sense that Mara would not be challenging the Buddha in previous lives, the previous Buddhas, to the extent that the Buddha Gautama. Provide me with some reference and we can examine that. Let's move on to the next question. Next comment says, science and mathematics does not have ethics but deal with empirical and theoretical conceptualization of reality. Philosophy discusses ethics. How would this relate to Buddhism? Practically. And gradually, even the scientists and researchers are gradually learning that that ethics and generosity are very important contributors to our happiness. The point of science, up to my understanding, is to find ways how to be happier in our lives. As the Americans say, to make the world a better place to live. And so that's what the science tries, like scientists try to find ways how to be happier. And if they find out that living ethically and being generous makes you happier, well, then that's of course what they will say. And they will say it based on the research. Up to my understanding, there has not been much research on ethics, and it would be amazing to do that. If you have anyone heard of research related to ethics, I would love to read about it. But there definitely has been a lot of research on generosity as connected to our happiness. And it has been found out that generosity alone can be responsible for higher levels of happiness in people. So I think the science is actually going that way. It's going that way towards gradually understanding that ethics is important for our happiness. But I worry that we'll have to wait some more time for that. Let's continue. How Kamma How is Kamma? I see. So that's some idea, but unfortunately, it's not explained there. Kamma is not the way how Kamma is carried from one moment to another. This process is not explained in Abhidhamma or in Patthana, and it has not been explained by any monk, and I can totally assure you of that. Bring them to me, and I will entirely crush them, because there is no way how you can explain that. First of all, the Buddha has clearly explained that if you try to understand Kamma, you will not understand it. That's the first start. Okay, now whatever else I say is basically useless, but to satisfy your thirst for knowledge, let me tell you that there is this idea that Kamma is stuck, or it is glued to a jhavana moment. So our mind is made up of arising passing moments, and these arising passing moments stream can be divided into sections. Each section has relatively similar nature, such as that there is the potential to know, the ability to accept the new object, for example, the visible object by the eye, then the reception of the object into the eye, the contact, then a gradual feeling and perception, and then some kind of decision or some kind of attitude towards that object. So this would be like one process, and these processes are repeating again and again and again, of course, with different objects and with a little bit different nature. But the principles are basically the same in each and every of these sections of the mind. Now, all of these sections, by the end, they have the 7 moments called jhavana. Jhavana means running. And here they are called jhavana because they're very fast. These 7 jhavanas, they are responsible for our attitude to the object that we receive. Now, of course, we receive a huge amount of objects, and basically every microsecond, every second for sure. We definitely can conceive of about 20 objects per second pretty well, but unconsciously we in fact conceive of many more. For example, your screen flicker needs to be in thousands so that you feel comfortable with your screen, be it on your phone or your computer and so on. So these flickers, that means the screen is coming, going, they need to be super fast so that it feels natural. That's because our mind is somehow able to notice the difference between the frequency of thousands of things per second and hundreds of thousands of things per second. It's simply different somehow. So we are able truly to accept objects in a very fast succession. then my point here is that these jhavanas, which are at the end of each of these sections, they contain the Kamma. They maintain, they hold your Kamma. So we distinguish them in three kinds, these jhavanas, the first one, the last one, and one of the 5 middle jhavanas. So if it is your last jhavana, now I may have jumbled it up, but you'll get the point. So let's say the last jhavana, if your Kamma gets stuck to the last jhavana moment, then it means the result, the consequence will be experienced in this life. If it is stuck to the first moment, it will be experienced in the next life. If it is stuck to any of the middle 5 moments, the consequence will be experienced in one of the lives, starting from the life after the next life. Again, be careful, because these which moment, which life, I probably have jumbled it up, so it's a little different. Now, my point is not to explain to you which jhavana goes for each consequence. I'm going to explain to you something else. My point is that these are moments that arise and pass. Okay, so we have arising and passing. Arising and passing. Arising and passing. Now, suppose that there is no real source from which they arise. They are only conditioned by the other moments that came before. But there is no source that would be blinking them, that would be sending them, not at all. The only reason why they arise and the only power they get to arise is coming from the past. And maybe a little bit from the future, but this would be probably for a different question. So these moments, because they are based on the past and because they are not sent by anything, they bring about a little problem. Because if these moments are totally separate, one arises, passes, the other one arises, passes, then there is no way how you can transport something between them. For example, I'll take a pen, and I want to get the pen to some other place. You will come to visit me in the monastery, and in this example, do not have a way how to get to the town. Now I'm in a little village. So if you come by car, for example, then I may give you the pen, then you will take that pen into your car, then you will go by your car to that town, and then you will get that pen to the town, let's say to my friend who's in the town. So here we are, three bodies, me, you, and my friend. Now the point is that we want to transport this pen to my friend. How are we going to do that? Now, if I arise and pass, and then you arise and pass, there is no way how you could take that pen. I will have to arise and meet you. You will have to arise too. And as I have arisen and you have arisen, I will touch you. I will contact you by this pen. I will hand you that pen. And then after you are contacted, after you have met with me and taken the pen, you will have yet to continue moving that pen to the city. And then in the city, you will have to meet, you will have to touch, contact my friend so that you can give them the pen. So in the simile, the pen is like the Kamma. And I am like one moment of the mind. You're like another moment of the mind, and my friend is like another moment of the mind. Now, if we want to transport the pen, we will have to meet each other. I cannot die when you come, then you will not be able to get the pen, right? How will you get the pen? The pen arose with me, right? I'm the one who holds the pen. So if I die, the pen must die with me. There's no way for you to take it. So because the moments arise and pass, there's no way for the moments to meet. And because they do not meet, there is no way how they could transport Kamma. And so any idea of Kamma being glued or attached to the moments of the mind doesn't provide any explanation at all to the way how Kamma is transported from one moment to another. So we don't know. But it is perfectly in line with the Buddha's teachings, where the Buddha says, you cannot know. Quite simple. Okay, so think about that. And next time you can ask me another question if this one was not clear or if you have another idea. Let's move on to another question or comment if we have it. Are there kammic tendencies which determine one's sex? I don't know what you mean by that. Please provide some example. Your sex is determined by, I'd say, two things. That's how I understand it so far. Our sex is determined by two things. One is kamma and one is our determination. You can decide to be born as a woman, and regardless of your kamma for being a man, you will be born as a woman. I worry that if you have kamma to become a woman and wish to become a man, you will not be able to become a man. Because, as you have understood, I take man birth as higher, that means as more pleasurable, than as woman's birth. And so you will need a little better kamma to be born as a man than the kamma to be born as a woman. On the other hand, if you have kamma to become a man or even as a god, still, if you wish to be a woman, you will be born as a woman. Depends on you. On the other hand, again, if you have kamma only to be a woman, then you will probably be born as a woman, especially if you wish to be born as a woman or if you don't wish anything. So that's my answer. Make sure that you ask me again if I did not answer your question, or if I answered something else, or if I did not answer completely. Just ask again in different words. Maybe you will get to know something else or something more. Next question. Buddha admonished for one of his chief disciples only higher birth than achieving sainthood. I don't understand that sentence, but you maybe, if you are not native English, you may like to write your question in Google Translate in your language and then send me the Google translation. Sometimes the translation is, there is a chance that the translation will be clear to me. So the Buddha, of course, knew that all of his chief disciples, before they were arahants, that they have the potential to become arahants. So the Buddha did his best to lead them to the arahanthood. In one case, however, with Mr. Nanda, the Buddha saw that Mr. Nanda is not interested in becoming enlightened or being a monk. So to encourage him to become a monk and to try for enlightenment, the Buddha took him to the heaven, showed him the goddesses, and thus Nanda was no more interested in his wife-to-be. He became a monk, and later he became an arahant. In another case, a gentleman wanted to become a Brahma which is basically a higher kind of a god who does not enjoy sensual pleasures but enjoys meditation pleasures. And Venerable Sariputta taught this gentleman the way how to become a Brahma instead of the way how to become enlightened. The gentleman passed away and truly became a Brahma. But the Buddha then rebuked Venerable Sariputta for leading the Brahmin, for leading the gentleman to become a Brahma in the next life. The Buddha explained the gentleman had the potential to become enlightened, and he taught him the way to become a Brahma. And according to somebody, I don't know where I heard that, but I have heard or read somewhere that Venerable Sariputta then had to go to the Brahma world and teach this Brahma to become enlightened. So that's again my answer. Today we are going very fast. I'm not sure. I've got here some suggestion about executioner, but it doesn't help. You will need to tell me more details about that. So let's move on to the next question. We have the same thing 2 times here. Okay, we are getting towards the end. Is there a way to take up robes without permission, or then your parents are against it? What are the Vinaya implications of the preceptor and the person entering the robes without permission? So first of all, that's I've got an idea that's not included in your question, but it seems as if it was included there. And that is it okay to get the robes without anyone's permission? That means you buy the robes in the shop, take them home, and then you put them on your body. And then you go around and say that you're a monk or a nun. As for monks, this would be one of the serious, heinous crimes, very serious crimes against the community of Sangha. And if you do that, then you would not be allowed to become a monk anymore in your life. So don't do it. If you want to become a monk, you need to have a teacher who already is a monk and who himself has a teacher who already is a monk. You cannot just become monk by your own idea, by your own decision, by just putting the robes on your body and going here and there and saying that you're a monk. Not at all. And it's just so dangerous. So you'd better not do it. Maybe you don't care now, but you may care after 10 years or after 20 years. So I'd suggest that if you want to become a monk, you definitely find somebody who is already a monk and who will ordain you as a monk in a proper manner so that you can be a monk. After being a monk, you can anytime disrobe, become a layperson, and then from a layperson, you can again become a monk again. In Sri Lanka, they believe you can do this maximum 7 times, become a monk and disrobe. But in Myanmar, they believe there is no such limit. So if you think that you want to become a monk and totally free to disrobe and become a monk again, maybe you'd like to consider becoming a monk in Myanmar. Now let's get to the question. So the question is asking about parents. If your parents do not live, it doesn't count. It's as if you have got the permission. If one of your parents does not live, you need to get the permission from the other one. Only when you have permission from your parents, monks are allowed to ordain you to be a monk. You do not have to have it written on a paper. I have it written on a paper, and I have it with me until now. And I have been a monk in robes for about 15 years, with the higher ordination for about over 11 years, so-called 𝗀𝗶𝗸𝗲, 12 summers. You know, you can have 12 summers, but not complete 12 years. Do your maths. And so you do not need to have it on a paper. Again, I do, and I have another friend who's a monk, and he also has it on a paper. But no need. If you believe your parents give you permission, that's absolutely enough. You need to ask them for it. My dear parents, will you give me permission to become a monk? And there are, of course, some tricks to do if your parents do not give you permission. So far, the best trick that I have heard of is to ask for temporary permission. My dear parents, give me permission for 1 month or for 1 year to become a monk. And then after you get that permission, then you have two things. One thing, because you are already a monk, whether they permit you to continue or not, it doesn't really matter. You're already a monk, and you can be a monk until the end of your life. Nobody cares about your parents' permission. So that's a pretty witty trick, isn't it? Another, you could, of course, be a little more considerate of your parents' wish. But truly, from the Buddhist point of view, your parents' wish doesn't matter at all. Nobody really cares. But if you are considerate, you could say, my dear parents, give me permission for another 1 year, if they don't want to give permission until the end of life. But again, as soon as you're ordained one time, nobody can prohibit you from being a monk. Or they can, but their prohibition has zero value. Absolutely zero. So at the very moment you're ordained, regardless what was the permission, whether for 1 day or 7 days or 1 minute or whatever it is, doesn't matter. Once you're ordained for life. There's no other ordination. We have only lifelong ordination. And you have always the opportunity to disrobe, to become a layperson. So it's always like this. Yes, yes. Ordination for whole life and permission to become a layperson anytime you want. So there is no ordination where the monks would say, so we ordain you for 7 days, and after 7 days, your ordination is automatically canceled. No, that's ridiculous. So if you get permission, temporary permission, you can use that. But it's a trick. It's a little bit of deception. So think about your morality. Then, what else? If your parents do not want to allow you to become a monk in any way, even for 1 day, because maybe your parents see this video, so they already know about this trick. And I know that I can understand that many parents are pretty smart, so they can easily recognize these tricks. So they will not simply allow you to be ordained, even temporarily. And in that case, you're running into a trouble, because there is no way how you will ordain under virtuous monks. Still, monks can ordain you if you do not get permission. But those monks have tiny little offense. They have broken a rule. That means they have ordained somebody who did not get permission from their parents. On the other hand, if these monks who have broken that small rule and ordained you, you actually become full-fledged monk and can happily continue being a monk until the end of your life. What are the Vinaya implications of the preceptor and the person entering the robes without permissions? Yes, so according to Vinaya, this would be a 𝗀𝗂𝗯𝗀𝗃 offense, and that's a very small offense. So if you want to become a monk and you do not have permission from your parents, then there is a way in this world, and that is to ordain under a monk who doesn't care about these small rules. But I personally would suggest that you do not ordain under monks who don't care about small rules, because they may as well not care about big rules later or already now. So it's better for you to ordain under monks who follow all rules strictly and somehow, make an agreement with your parents that you will become a monk. If your parents already don't agree that you become a monk, show it to them. Show them that being a monk is better for you than being a layperson, that it makes you more happy. You can show it to them by meditating very intensively every day in the home. They will find out that you meditate so intensively. And you can remind them this all times, like every day or every week. You can send them a message every day. And you can be sure that when they see that you're serious, you truly like meditate every day, that you truly follow strict rules, like 10 rules: you don't touch money, you don't eat afternoon, and things like that. Well, they will be considering the permission. And I'm pretty sure that parents who love you will, in the end, give you permission for whole life. I call it the indeterminate permission. Okay. What is the advantage of stubble body? You probably mean subtle body versus gross body in samatha and vipassana meditation. Subtle body. I'm not sure whether you mean the, what's it called? 𝗀𝗂𝗯𝗀𝗲. Okay, subtle body, gross body. The point here is that we're talking about breath and not really about the material body. You can gradually remove your breath as you achieve the fourth jhana, and that definitely would be totally removed. I see. So that definitely would be removing of the body, that means of the body of breath. And it's possible to stay in the fourth jhana for quite a long time, maybe even 7 days. So you would not be breathing for 7 days. And then after those 7 days, you just exit your meditation attainment and just continue living happily and healthily like everybody else. That's possible. And there's a story from Ajahn Brahmavamso, who speaks of a husband of a lady who has achieved a deep level of concentration like that, did not breathe at all. So his wife took him to the hospital, and the doctors saw that he doesn't breathe at all. So they wondered, how's that possible? He doesn't breathe, but his body is warm. And then he exited his meditation attainment, and he was wondering what's going on. So it's possible not to breathe at all for a long time, but don't do that without guidance of an experienced master. If you mean by subtle body, but here we see samatha vipassana, so I don't think it's related to deities and humans. You can achieve, you can change the nature of your physical body if you travel to the different worlds, such as of the deities and of the Brahmas, because you would not be able to enter those worlds or to see those beings with this coarse body that we are having, that we are using now. I think maybe I did not understand your question, so I'd like to ask you to ask again in a different way. And maybe if you have read something somewhere, tell me the reference as well, so I can check it out and tell you an accurate answer. What about actors acting as monks? What are the implications? That one is a little hard question. But they probably know that you know that they are actors, that they are not real monks. And because they expect you to know that they are actors, that they are not monks, I personally think there would be no problem with that. But traditionally, when people in Myanmar want to play a role as a monk in a movie, they will truly ordain as a monk. And then after they have ordained as a monk, they play in that movie. There are movies about Dhamma like that. What are the implications of deception as a monk? Depends on how do you deceive. If you deceive another person in such a way that they start to be generous, virtuous, and they meditate, or that they stop doing wrong things, like the Venerable 𝗷𝗶𝗸𝗲 is believed to having pretty well deceived. The Mara, how to say that? Mara the tempter, or the great god who believes that we all should enjoy sensual pleasures, there is no problem at all. And he was an arahant by that time. There's this case in commentaries of the gentleman in Sri Lanka, or the monk in Sri Lanka, who swept, and this will be the last thing I'm going to say and tell you today. So in Sri Lanka, one time, there was a monk who meditated on the Buddha's qualities. He swept the yard, he cleaned the monastery every day very carefully, and after that, he meditated on the Buddha's qualities. And so the Mara noticed that, and the Mara thought that he needs to stop this monk from his meditation, because the monk was too dangerously close to become enlightened. And so Mara took the appearance of a monkey, and by the time that the monk has already cleaned the monastery, the Mara then jumped from branch to branch here and there, so that he made a mess in the monastery. The monk then saw that there's a mess, so he was not able to meditate. Instead, he had to go and do more sweeping, and that effectively interrupted the meditation, the practice of the monk. Another day, the Mara came as a limping cow. What's a limping cow? That's a cow that has a problem with one of its legs. And so the cow, as it was coming in a very unnatural way, it made also mess. And this was again after the monk has nicely cleaned the monastery. Now this cow has come, and the monk is wondering, hey, there are no cows in the village. I have not seen any cow in this area. What can this mean? And so he came up to that cow and he said, "Oh cow, aren't you Mara?" And the cow changed into this shining, beautiful, living being, Mara, because Mara is one of the greatest gods in the Buddhist understanding. He's shining, and his body is truly very, very beautiful. Okay, he's a man, that's true, but his body is very handsome. Okay, he is a god. He is the king rebel in his heaven, and he is in the highest heaven of sensual pleasures. So the monk saw the Mara, and he has this idea. So Mara, so you can change yourself into a monkey. You can change yourself into a cow. Do you still remember how the Buddha looked like? And the Mara says, "Yes, I do." And the Mara and the king, and the monk says, "Oh Mara, would you be able to take the appearance of the Buddha?" And the Mara says, "Of course, I can do that. So show it to me." And Mara took the appearance of the Buddha. Now, as the monk saw the appearance of the Buddha, this was a very powerful support in his meditation practice. Very soon, the monk became an arahant, thanks to the Mara taking up the appearance of Mara. And then Mara came up to the monk and says, "So you have deceived me." And the monk says, "What is it to deceive a Mara?" In other words, deceiving a deceiver in such a way that you or another person turn or achieve progress towards Nibbana, or achieve progress in doing good deeds, apparently does not count as deception. If a monk deceives in order to steal, then that, however, is the end of the monk's monkhood, and he cannot be a monk anymore in his life, regardless how he works hard. Monks who have sex, who steal, who kill humans, who tell lies about their attainments, they cannot be monks anymore in their life. They have to become a person right now. But they actually can become novices. So they can become like servant monks of a senior monk. And these servant monks, they do not follow monks' rules. They follow 10 precepts of the novices' rules. And they actually can take permission from their caretaker, from the chief monk, and they can dedicate themselves to meditation and still actually achieve enlightenment, even though they broke one of the heinous crimes, one of the most serious rules when they were previously monks. So it's not like the end of life if the monk breaks one of the 4 main rules, but it's definitely a problem because he cannot grow the community of monks, because only monks who have the higher ordination can ordain a new gentleman, and they also can ordain a new novice. Novices cannot ordain novices. So this was the last question that I dealt with today. I see there are some more questions. I would like to ask our organizer to add these questions to our beautiful table where we collect questions. I know that the organizer is very busy, but I think that this will not take so much time, and the organizer can help a lot to increase your trust into our meetings, that your questions will be answered. And you all can also look at this table, and potentially, if you like, you can add your question yourself. So I will send to you the link. Now here it is. So it is probably visible in YouTube. Apparently not. Yes, and in Facebook as well. So you can join this table, and if you have a question, go to the tab for English, for the English questions, and there you can right-click on a cell, select comment, and write your question into the comment. Then we will review your comment and write it into the cell, and then of course answer it as soon as the time comes. Thank you all very much for coming, for listening, for your questions, which helped to extend this class for 45 minutes more. And I hope to see you again next week. May you be happy, may you be healthy, and may you be successful in everything you do.
Concludes today's lecture on the workings of karma. This series is held every Wednesday at the same time, that is, 2 p.m. Coordinated Universal Time or Greenwich Mean Time. This translates to 7:30 p.m. Sri Lanka and India time. Please note your local time and join us every week. Let us take a moment to share merits with everyone now. Stay tuned for more content like the workings of karma. We are working hard to bring practical insights from Buddhism to improve your lives and the world at large. To get notified about new releases and also to help us spread the word, if you haven't already done so, please consider liking, sharing, subscribing, commenting and turning on notifications. Also, please consider watching some of our other content. We also have content in other languages too. Also, please consider subscribing to our other language channels. Hoping to see you again in our live programs.